6:37 on the Grandy Group. Major Garrett capably filling in for Brian Neiman this morning. And
So far.
So far. Hold your breath.
And I must say, Fred, just so the audience knows, I think the buffet is especially good this morning.
Yeah. That is a virtual buffet, in case you haven't tried it.
It's a buffet of the mind, folks.
Yeah, it is. That's what this show is. And speaking of which, we welcome back to our buffet of the mind Cliff May, as you know, the president of the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and will also be a panelist this Thursday when we convene our domestic terrorism seminar at the Capitol Visitor Center. Cliff, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you guys.
Well, I'm glad you're here because one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about this morning is in the aftermath, supposedly, of Egypt, now that the military is in control and supposedly they are imposing martial law, which everybody knows is a glide path to democracy. Where's the Muslim Brotherhood? All of a sudden they have either gone underground or disappeared, and given the amount of time we've talked about it, what is your read on where they are and what they're doing?
Oh, I think they're being quiet, and I think they're being clever. The Muslim Brotherhood and groups like the Muslim Brotherhood don't think in terms of 2-year or 4-year election cycles. They think in terms of decades and even centuries. I would imagine that their plan is to get into the election process, to get into the government, and over a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year period, increasingly exert their influence. They don't have any charismatic leaders right now. I don't think they have anybody they necessarily want to put up for president.
Certainly not al-Baradei.
What's that?
Certainly not al-Baradei.
Al-Baradei is somebody who is sympathetic to the Muslim Brotherhood, but not actually a member of the Brotherhood. I think they see him as, what's called a donkey of the revolution. That is somebody you ride to get where you want to go, and then you can kick him away. And Baradei doesn't have much popularity in the country anyhow. Last poll, he was about 3%. So I don't think they see that as the way. They figure, look, we'll do this over time. And they look at examples like Turkey, which for 80 years was a secular country, secularism guaranteed by the military, but is increasingly Islamist. I think they have a long-term game plan here.
Cliff, do you think that the Muslim Brotherhood played any significant role in this quote-unquote revolution? Do you think over time we may learn that they were far more shrewd, far more instrumental than they appear to have been?
I actually don't think so. I think their goal is more to hijack the revolution. I think this revolution was about the fact that well over half of Egyptians are in dire poverty. There are those even who are graduating from universities have no jobs. There is a desire, I think, among Egyptians for more freedom and the right to choose their leaders. They've had, after all, one ruler for 30 years. I don't actually think that's the case, but I do think they see this as an opportunity for them over the long term.
Next question then would be how hijackable, if that is a word, and I'm making it up on the fly, is this revolution? I mean, yes, I agree with you. I think that is the long-range plan of Muslim Brotherhood. Is it achievable?
Yeah, it's very easy for anti-democratic groups to use democratic processes for their own benefit. As Fred knows, 32 years ago today, I was actually in Iran covering that revolution. Mm-hmm. And that revolution initially was led by a coalition of groups. It included secularists, it included leftists, it included merchants, it included students, and they all believed that Ayatollah Khomeini not only tolerated them, but valued them. And I remember young people, idealistic, English-speaking, foreign-educated, who told me, don't worry, this is our revolution. The religious segment is only a small part of it. It took less than 2 years before Khomeini and his cronies had full control, and my friends were either hanging from the gallows or were in prison or were leaving the country. Now, in Gaza, it took it did not take so long because we didn't understand that when an armed militia and terrorist group pretends to be a political party, they're very powerful. What you had in 2006 in Gaza was one man, one vote, one time. We'll probably never see elections there again anytime, or at least not anytime soon.
All right, let me take you back to some testimony that occurred last week. Perhaps the most infamous statement so far in this all unfolding in the Middle East is James Clapper, the director of national intelligence, saying Muslim Brotherhood, essentially a secular organization, organization. Nothing to worry about. But that was in the context of a hearing about domestic terrorism being on the rise in this country. You've talked about two terms that if you could quickly identify, it'll be helpful now and for our forum. Lawfare and jawfare. What are these terms?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're like warfare. Warfare is one way that the jihadis try to take control. But there's also lawfare. They use our laws against us. They do it by suing us. They do it by trying to insinuate Sharia Islamic law into our legal system. That's lawfare, like warfare. And then there's jawfare, which is essentially, which is what I use the term I use for public relations, essentially. So that you and I are having this discussion right now, and jawfare might be a group like CARE coming on and saying, boy, those guys are Islamophobic. Fred Grandy really should be shut down. Everything he's saying is against all Muslims everywhere. It's not true, but it makes for a good argument. So that's jawfare.
Cliff, what impact, if any, do you see what's happened in Tunisia, what's happening in Egypt, what may happen in Yemen, having on the broader discussion in this country about the future of Islam, pluralism, and all these other underlying issues?
Well, I hope it allows us to have a more candid discussion of some very complicated issues. We're discussing the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, but the Muslim Brotherhood is in some 80 countries around the world. It's here in the U.S. The Muslim Brotherhood also has many affiliated organizations, many organizations that are sympathetic to it. And indeed, a lot of the most powerful organizations that claim to speak for American Muslims or Muslims in Europe are Muslim Brotherhood affiliated or connected. And those are the ones that have most of the money, for a good reason, because the money is coming from places like Iran and Saudi Arabia, where there's sympathy for this organization and for its goals. And by the way, part of jawfare is, I mean, it's very troubling that James Clapper, Director of National Intelligence, doesn't understand what the Muslim Brotherhood is and what its goals are. But if you look in the media, you'll see this kind of thing all the time. I mean, I was on Fox, and the guy from Al Jazeera was on, and he was talking about the Muslim Brotherhood also being moderate, being opposed to terrorism, being against Al-Qaeda. And I said, just tell me, please, you're on Al Jazeera, you know the answer to this, what is the slogan of the Muslim Brotherhood? And he wouldn't say it, but I said it. And the slogan is very simple. Allah is our objective, the Prophet is our leader, the Quran is our law, jihad is our way, and dying in the way of Allah is our highest hope.
Okay.
His response to that, a lot of Christians want to die for their faith, too, you know.
All right, Cliff, we're going to have to leave it there, but to be continued on Thursday, Cliff May of the Foundation for Defense